we are going to work backwards. We have the graph. You have already done the DAB-C and graphed it. So if you had started with D, you would have started with your center line. Can you see where your center line is on this graph? Okay? And sometimes you can get it wrong, and it can help you. For example, let's say I think this is my center line. It's wrong. How can you tell it's wrong? Yeah, like if I go from the middle to the top, I go up 6. Middle to the bottom would be only 4. It's not in the middle. If you do it wrong, though, it's probably pretty easy. I guess I better make it dotted now that I've done it right. There we go. Pretty easy to see now. Is that right? Is it the same distance to the maximum and same distance to the minimum? Yeah. So easy to figure out your D value is 1. And while you were figuring out your D value, did we just figure out what our A value was? What's our amplitude? 5. Now we have the fact that our period is equal to 2 pi over our B value. If you rearrange this formula, you would get that your B value is always 2 pi over your period. Does that make sense how I just rearranged that formula? Multiply both sides by B, divide both sides by the period. Again, those formulas aren't on your formula sheet, so you have to know them or figure them out. Now, how do we count the period on this one? The period is how long it takes for it to repeat itself. I sometimes like to go minimum to minimum or maximum to maximum. And if I do that, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 squares I'm going to write. But squares isn't a good unit, and it isn't the unit, but like you see that 8 spaces in between? How much is one space on this graph? Well, 2 spaces is pi over 6. Does it make sense that 1 space is half of pi over 6, which would be pi over 12? So my period is 8 pi over 12, which is the same as 8 pi over 12. And I could reduce that if I wanted to. Okay. We need to figure out our B value. So let's say I reduce it. I get my period is 2 pi over 3. I go to my formula and say my B value is equal to 2 pi divided by my period, and my period was 2 pi over 3. How do you divide by a fraction? Multiply by the reciprocal. So this would equal, my top fraction is 2 pi over 1. If I do the reciprocal, I would get 3 over 2 pi. Can you see that your 2 pi is nicely simplified? So it was a little bit of work to find the B value. The B value is harder than the D value and the A value, but you can almost see that almost immediately. A little bit of figuring. Okay? Now, I figured out the B value using the formula. Sometimes this is really helpful. Can you see a shortcut that you could have said it was 3 earlier without doing all of this work? Norman, what do you see?
Well, you reduce the 8 pi over 12. It's 2 pi over 3.
I read. If you could write your period as 2 pi over something, then the over something is going to be your B value. That would be a shortcut. It doesn't always work that you have that shortcut available, but in this situation we did. Because we were able to write our period as 2 pi over 3, so therefore I would know my B value is 3. Next, our C value. You don't have to draw the dotted line. They didn't draw the dotted line. But we want a sine graph. So if we look at the question here, we want a sine graph. Where does a sine graph start? In the middle, going up. Can I find a point in the middle going up right here? There we go. What is that? That is 1, 2, 3 boxes to the right. So my C value, I have to shift things 3 pi over 12 to the right. How do I show all of this in an equation? It's going to be an equation, so I need y equals. My A value is 5. Sine, because it's supposed to be a sine graph. My B value is 3. Bracket. My shift, if I want to go 3 pi over 12 to the right, x's are liars. You see that you need to have minus 3 pi over 12? And then finally, my D value plus 1 at the end. Is this the only answer? No. Can you see that we have another place where it's in the middle going up there? You could have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. You could have changed this minus 3 pi over 12 to minus 11 pi over 12. And I'd have to mark it right. You want to be really mean to me? You can find one 7 miles down that way that also is in the middle going up, and I would have to double check it. Or I could be mean to you and I say, no, I'm not double checking. I'm just mark it wrong, and you have to come in at lunch and prove it to me. You have that little fight back and forth over and over. Could you have also done a negative sine graph? Can you see that if you had picked the middle going down, if you use that value, then you just have to put a negative out in front. So there's multiple answers. Did this have to be a sine graph? No. Could you have made this a cos graph if you had started at a maximum? Absolutely. So every graph, they're called sinusoidals, you can always make a cos equation and a sine equation. And for each of them, there's an infinite amount of right answers. But if you just guess, you probably won't get it right. Even though there's an infinite amount of right answers, just guessing doesn't necessarily work out for you. So the DAB part would be identical sine or cosine. Still the same center, same amplitude, same period. The only thing that changes is your C value if you want to do either a sine graph or a cosine graph. So circle question 4.